Okay, wouldn't it be something if you had a dilemma as to which way you go? You do that if he gets 10 wins. Same thing that happened with Prescott.
You want that controversy?
Of course I would.
Okay.
Of course that means we'd won. If it comes in there and played as well as Prescott played, Rush played that well over these next games ahead, I'd walk New York to get that.
As a Dallas Cowboys fan, I am very accustomed to our delusional fantasies. I mean, hell, you have me sarcastically saying this year is our f***ing year on Twitter constantly. But I think this is a brand new level of delusion. I mean, you have people's careers at stake at this point, and this is kind of a part 2 to a part 1 that we did last week, although things are looking a little bit better for the Dallas Cowboys at this point. So before we get to the content, man, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. If you want shorter versions of our content, we upload to TikTok and on Instagram regularly. Now that we got all that out of the way, Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? So in week 1 of the NFL season, Dak Prescott unfortunately sustained a hand injury, more specifically an injury to his thumb. And originally what most people were saying is that Dak was going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was significantly more pessimistic at the end of the Dallas Cowboys game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but as time progressed forward and after I saw what we were able to achieve in week 2, whether that was as a result of the Cowboys being better than I thought they were, or just the Cincinnati Bengals nursing one of the worst Super Bowl hangovers we've ever seen, I'm a little bit more optimistic. For one, I think Tyler Smith moving to the left tackle position prematurely was a huge blessing in disguise. I mean, in terms of his development, I think this is going to be huge for his career. And I think once Tyron Smith does come back, if he does even come back this season, the Dallas Cowboys offensive line is going to be in fairly good shape, whether that involves Tyler Smith moving to the left guard position or for him to continue playing the left tackle position. To give you an idea, Tyler Smith allowed 1 pressure in the entire game versus the Cincinnati Bengals and was graded in the 65% and above by Pro Football Focus. And bear in mind, this is a guy that was going up against Trey Hendrickson, who only managed 1 tackle in the game. Now, again, whether this was a symptom of the Cincinnati Bengals having a Super Bowl hangover or the Cowboys just slightly improving, I mean, that's something we're gonna have to wait until we see a couple more games in order to fully determine that. The thing that I'm now concerned about is you had Cooper Rush go out there and honestly deliver a masterful performance. I mean, towards the end of the game, Cooper Rush was able to drive the Dallas Cowboys into field goal range for the Cowboys to kick the game-winning field goal. I mean, you literally had Jacoby Brissett in a similar situation, although I'm gonna be honest, a little bit more difficult, but a similar situation where he was about 30 or so yards away from getting to midfield, so his kicker could come out and once again kick a game-winning field goal against the Jets, and he got intercepted. So the fact that Cooper Rush was able to achieve this is no small feat at all whatsoever. And ultimately, he finished completing 19 of 31 of his pass attempts for 1 touchdown and a 95.5 quarterback rating. I mean, there's a lot to be optimistic about. I mean, Micah Parsons is consistently being compared to Lawrence Taylor, and although I think it's premature, it seems like we definitely have a very special player in Micah Parsons that we honestly picked accidentally because our top player that we wanted in the 2021 NFL draft was Patrick Surtain II. And if it wasn't for the Denver Broncos surprising all of us by selecting him, the Cowboys would have never moved back to draft Micah Parsons. So there's a lot to be optimistic about. The Cowboys defense is looking good. The Cowboys offensive line could have been in a significantly worse situation. And the only thing that was kind of causing me some uneasiness coming into this season was the fact that our wide receiver core was so freaking depleted that our wide receiver 2 from week 1 has been cut from the roster. That's how bad it was. And as a result, we weren't necessarily looking very competitive. So Mike, what's the problem? You're just coming out here and telling us a bunch of reasons to be optimistic about the Dallas Cowboys. Well, despite the Cowboys being 1-1, and they have a huge test coming up currently versus the New York Giants, who have been looking remarkable this year, it seems like Jerry Jones is continuing to peddle the same exact overly optimistic BS to all Dallas Cowboys fans, and frankly, it's making me a bit uncomfortable. So if you remember in our last video, we brought you an article from The Athletic, and it had to do with Dak Prescott's hand injury, and an orthopedic surgeon broke down the entire injury and the timeline for his return. This was really good because you had Jerry Jones coming out and saying that he should be fine and good to go within the next 4 weeks or so, which I was already feeling a little bit uncomfortable about. And you had the orthopedic surgeon saying that if Dak Prescott comes back too soon, you could potentially break the plate, and if the bone hasn't healed, and that's still the weak point, and he would still be vulnerable to injury right there if he got hit the wrong way again. Certainly anytime you have to go back and revise something like that, it's much more difficult than just doing it right the first time. They won't release him unless they're sure that he's not going to be at risk of re-injury, and that bone itself is strong enough to also help support that area, not just the plate. So when the surgeons asked how long until a person with Dak's injury can start throwing a football again, she said that I would imagine that they would let him do light throwing somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks, but then harder, more aggressive throws may take more like 6 weeks. And more importantly, because bear in mind, this article came out right after the initial time Jerry Jones said that Dak Prescott should be good to return in week 4. So as a result, she was asked, is returning in 4 weeks even possible? Have you ever seen that quick of a recovery from that type of thumb injury? And she responded saying it is possible, but unlikely. If the surgeon feels like the fixation was very secure, they may allow him to return to throwing within 1 to 2 weeks, which might allow him to regain enough strength for return at 4 weeks. I think that is on the optimistic side, and 6 weeks for return is much more realistic. So bear that in mind as I tell you what Jerry Jones had to say following the Dallas Cowboys win against the Cincinnati Bengals. So Jerry Jones went on 105.3 The Fan, and he originally said it's still too soon to say when Prescott will be back on the field, but it's possible that he'll only miss 1 more game and will play in week 4 against the Commanders. So here's the exact quote. I don't know that anybody knows when he'll be back, Jones said, but when he gets enough strength in his hand, then you'll probably see some real advancement in his timeline. Brilliant! Yes, excellent! When he gets more strength in his hand, then you'll see some real advancement in his timeline. He's not done yet, by the way. I don't know when that is. I do know that with a good airing out last week, everybody recognizes that he'll be back sooner rather than later as far as the timeline. It really could be a minimum of 2 weeks up here in my mind. Now, I'm gonna give credit where credit's due because Jerry Jones even acknowledges how ridiculous that is. Now, that's very optimistic, but he's got the kind of repair there that will allow him not to have a lot of fear of re-injuring it. It's just a question of the grip, but it's a big question. So if we go back to what the orthopedic surgeon said, she essentially said that if the bone hasn't healed and that's still the weak point, he would still be vulnerable to injury right there if he got hit the wrong way again. And anytime you have to go back and revise something like that, it's much more difficult than just doing it right the first time. Man, I know Dallas Cowboys fans have this reputation of being delusional. I mean, hell, that's why we do the "this year is our year," even though it's not really our year. But man, that perception of Dak Prescott's injury and his potential return table is bizarre. It's delusional, it's ridiculous, it could result in him getting hurt even more so, and frankly, I think it's unnecessary. I mean, no disrespect to the Giants because they're currently undefeated, no disrespect to the Commanders because to be honest, they're a lot better than we all thought they were going to be. Carson Wentz doesn't seem to be that horrific of a QB, or he's just doing an excellent job padding his stats during garbage time. I'll let you guys decide. But I feel like, I'm not necessarily saying these are guaranteed wins, but I feel like the Dallas Cowboys could at least be competitive versus the New York Giants and the Washington Commanders with Cooper Rush, which by the way is still undefeated as a starter for the Cowboys. So I don't think it's really worth risking the entire season for Dak Prescott to come back prematurely when he might not even have enough strength to throw a football properly. I mean, ideally, maybe you get Dak back against the LA Rams. I think even that's a bit of a stretch. Now, hold on, there's way more information on this subject, including some bizarre things that Jerry Jones has said. So first, we're getting this from Jory Epstein. Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott still has stitches in his throwing hand thumb, per Mike McCarthy, but he participated in some fundamentals work today. He joined Cooper Rush and Will Greer for footwork drills, though Dak didn't grip or throw a football as they did dropbacks on air during pat and go, which is good because it means Dak Prescott's working on his footwork, making sure he doesn't get rusty. He still doesn't have the ability to grip a football, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. But for all you know, Dak Prescott could completely lose his job, his starting job, the man that we paid over $40 million a couple years ago, to the backup Cooper Rush that was literally cut about a month ago and then brought back onto the roster during the start of the regular season. And I'm not making this up. This is coming to us from Jerry Jones.
Okay, wouldn't it be something if you had a dilemma as to which way you go? You do that if he gets 10 wins. Same thing had happened with Prescott.
You'd want that controversy?
Of course I would.
Okay.
Of course that means we'd won. If it comes in there and played as well as Prescott played, Rush played that well over these next games ahead, I'd walk New York to get there.
Do you think he can do that?
Well, I don't know that, but I would. You can't find on record where I said I thought Dak Prescott could do it when he stepped in and had the chance to do that, but he did it.
Realistically, though, Rush won't have those 10 games. It'll be shorter than that.
Well, of course we want Dak to be here next week. That's the thing. You do. But Dak and I want Rush to lead a team to a victory here and get another win and get another win. And that's the only way to look at it. Looking back when Dak was playing instead of Tony, it was game by game. It wasn't the long look we had after 2 months to look back. It was actually play by play, almost series by series. So do I think that it's possible for Rush to come in here and play at a level to win games the way Prescott did when he took over for Romo? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I certainly think that's possible.
But is it possible that Cooper could play well enough that when Dak's ready to go, Dak won't go because Cooper's played so well?
Well, it was impossible, ostensibly, that Prescott could play that well and keep Romo out of the championship game. When every other team in the tournament had a Rodgers or had a seasoned veteran, excellent quarterback. Nobody went in that year with a rookie but us.
So there's multiple things that could be going on here. There's multiple possibilities after watching and listening to this interview. Either A, Jerry Jones is absolutely losing his mind, and I'm not saying Cooper Rush isn't talented because you never know what could happen, man. Like if the man does end up balling out for an entire season and is absolutely like carving up the NFL record book, setting records and just clearly looking like a starting QB the way Dak did when he took over during his rookie year, then yeah, you might have a controversy, although I don't think there will be a large enough sample size to allow Cooper Rush to do that. In my head, I think Dak's going to be out for another 5 weeks, personally. But either Jerry Jones is really delusional, or he's just trying to give the media something to generate clicks. And I honestly think it could be either one of those, or even a combination of both. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about this entire video? I know I gave you a lot to digest there. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.